The auctioneer laughed. He didn't try to hide it. He simply turned his face away, covered his mouth with his fist, and laughed. And the other men around him laughed too. That kind of low chuckle that doesn't need a loud sound to cut deep. Kylie Hemsworth was 18. So was Cate Hemsworth. They were standing in the middle of a gravel car park in Locker Valley, Queensland, with the 3 o'clock sun hammering the backs of their necks and $10 in cash in their hands, the last bills they had in the world. Lot number 34 was on the screen behind the auctioneer. An aerial photo. Dry, rocky scrubland on the edge of a rural property that had seen its best days somewhere in the 1970s. There was a structure, if you could call it that. A sagging timber farmhouse with a collapsed iron roof, half swallowed by lantana and time. No one had bid. No one wanted it. No one, except a voice from the back of the audience. $10. It was Cate who spoke, quietly, directly, without trembling. The auctioneer looked. And Derek King, sitting in the front row with his R.M. Williams boots crossed and the brim of his acabra pulled low, turned his whole body in his chair to see where that voice had come from. What he saw were two young Aboriginal women, identical, with backpacks on their backs and clothes that had seen better days. He smiled, slowly. Lot 34, said the auctioneer, his hammer already rising, sold for $10. No one bid against it. Why would they? That plot of land was worthless. That's what everyone thought. What no one understood at that moment was why Derek King had stopped smiling so abruptly when the hammer fell. He stood up without saying a word. He walked past the twins without looking, but before getting into his ute, he stopped. He stood with his back turned for 2-3 seconds, and then he drove off. Kylie saw that. She remembered it. The two of them had slept the previous week in a community shelter 60 kilometers away in Toowoomba, then on a park bench, then in a woman's car who needed the vehicle back. Their grandmother, Ruth Hemsworth, had died 6 weeks earlier. A massive heart attack one Tuesday morning, without warning. Ruth was the only family they had. With her, the unit in Ipswich was gone too. The lease was in her name, the bills in her name, everything in her name. The twins woke up in a world where they no longer had anything that belonged to them. Except now this lot. Cate looked at the paper the auctioneer had placed in her hand. Coordinates, a rural address in Locker Valley. She looked at Kylie. "It's ours," she said. Kylie didn't answer right away. She was still staring at the dust that Derek King's ute had kicked up as it drove off down the dirt road. "Why did he want this?" she said, more to herself than to her sister. Cate didn't know how to answer. Neither of them did. But the question hung there, suspended between them as they walked toward the regional bus stop, because they needed to get to that property before dark. What was in the aerial photo was even worse in person. The farmhouse, if it even deserved that name, had a corrugated iron roof on one side that had completely caved in. The timber walls had leaned inward as if they were trying to embrace each other before falling. The front door had no hinges and was resting against the doorframe. The floor was half red dirt, half rotten floorboards. It smelled of old dampness, mold, and of animals that had used it as a shelter for years. Cate stood in the doorway for a long moment. Kylie had already gone inside. They divided up what needed to be done without needing to discuss it. It had been like this since they were children. One would start a sentence, and the other would finish it. Not because they were alike, but because they had learned to complement each other. Kylie went to examine the supporting structure, tapping the hardwood beams with her knuckles, testing where the timber still held. Cate went to take inventory of what was there. A cracked louver window in the back, a rusted Metters wood-burning stove, a bent steel shelf, and in the corner opposite the entrance, a pile of things covered by an old blue canvas tarpaulin that the Queensland winds hadn't blown away by sheer miracle. They lifted the tarp together. Tools, old, rusty, but tools. A mattock, 2 claw hammers, a handsaw with a cracked handle, nails inside a Milo tin sealed with electrical tape. And underneath it all, folded in 4, a hand-drawn map in pencil, rough but careful, indicating where the land ended, where the soil was deepest, and where a symbol had been marked 3 times in different spots. A triangle inside a circle. And in the corner of that same map, in small, neat handwriting, "Follow the markers, start under the house. Ruth, 1987. Kylie stared at the map for a long time. Someone really knew this place, she said. Who had left it there, and why, was a question neither of them could answer yet. They slept that first night inside what was left of the farmhouse, their backpacks serving as pillows and the tarpaulins spread out on the firmest patch of floorboards they could find. The temperature dropped more than they'd expected. That's Queensland winters, bright blue days, and cold, star-flooded nights. Cate lay awake staring at the torn ceiling. Through the hole in the iron roof, she could see the Milky Way, thick and blazing the way it only gets out west of the dividing range. She thought of their grandmother. Ruth woke up at 5 every morning and made Billy tea before anything else. She never explained why. She just did. And the smell of that tea had been the first thing in Kate's life for as long as she could remember, until it wasn't anymore. She took a deep breath. She didn't let the tears fall, because she knew that if she did, she wouldn't be able to stop. And in the morning, she needed to be on her feet. The next morning, before the sun got too fierce, Kylie was already outside with the mattock. She had marked a perimeter on the ground with stones. Cate looked at that improvised outline in the red dirt and tried to understand what her sister was seeing, because Kylie was clearly seeing something that didn't exist yet. "What are you building?" Cate asked. Kylie pointed. She spoke for 2 minutes. Cate listened in silence. When Kylie finished, Cate stared at the stones on the ground, at the map, at the tools, at her sister. "That's impossible," she said. "Everything we've done so far was impossible," Kylie replied, and went back to work. It was on the third day that Derek King showed up for the first time. He pulled the ute over to the side of the dirt track leading to the lot. He didn't get out. He sat there with his arm resting on the open window, watching. The twins were tearing down what was left of a sidewall beyond saving. They didn't stop. They didn't look at him. He stayed for about 10 minutes. He left. He returned 2 days later and stayed longer. On the 7th day, he got out of the ute. Derek King was 53 years old, 6'3", and had the kind of presence that filled a shed before he even opened the door. In Locker Valley, he was the largest private landholder, 3 farms, a grain transport company, and a stake in 2 silos outside Gatton. People in town spoke his name with a certain caution. Not exactly fear, but that respect that comes from knowing the man can make someone's life difficult if he wants to. He walked across the property as if it were already his. "I'll be straight with you," he said, standing 3 meters from Kylie with Cate outside hauling debris. "This land is worth more than $10, you know that." Kylie stuck the mattock into the ground. She looked at him. "Then why didn't anyone offer more?" she said. He ignored the question. He pulled an envelope from his shirt pocket and placed it on the broken window ledge that served as a makeshift bench. $2,000 cash. You take it today and walk." Kylie didn't touch the envelope. "It's not for sale." Derek looked at her for a long moment, then at Cate, who had stopped and was listening, then back at Kylie. "Everything has a price," he said. "Then offer one I'll accept," she replied. He took the envelope back. He left without another word. And it was at that moment, watching Derek's broad back walk out through the hingeless doorway, that Cate felt something that wasn't just suspicion. It was recognition, as if that scene echoed something she couldn't quite place yet. The answer began to emerge 3 days later, in a place neither of them expected. Cate was pulling up what was left of the rotten floorboards in the back room, boards that needed to come out to make way for new ones, when the mattock struck something different beneath the subfloor. Not dirt, not timber, something more solid, more deliberate. She brushed it with her hand. It was a steel hatch, roughly a meter square, set into a poured concrete base. The hinges were rusted but intact. A heavy padlock held it shut, but the lock hasp had pulled away from the frame on one side, weakened by decades of moisture. She whistled for Kylie. Together, they worked the hatch open with a crowbar and a length of timber as a lever. It gave way with a groan that rattled the whole back wall. Beneath it, a bunker. Not deep, perhaps 2 meters down, accessed by a rough timber ladder still bolted to the concrete wall. They climbed down together, Kylie holding her phone torch up. The bunker was dry. Someone had waterproofed it well. In the torchlight, they could make out timber shelving along one wall, a workbench, and on the floor, 4 items covered in oilcloth. They uncovered them one by one. The first was a tin box. Inside it, a black and white photograph, a folded document with a stamped edge, and a handwritten letter on yellowed paper. The second was a canvas roll tied with twine. Inside it, a detailed hand-drawn map, far more precise than the one under the tarp upstairs. It showed the full property boundaries, marked 3 dig sites with the triangle inside circle symbol, and had notes in the margins about soil depth, rock layers, and what lay beneath each one. The third was a Hessian sack. They opened it and Kylie went very still. Inside were old coins, Australian pre-decimal currency, Commonwealth florins and shillings, along with a bundled stack of old banknotes, brittle at the edges but intact. A handwritten note clipped to the bundle read, "For the one who comes back, use it to build what I couldn't. R.H." The fourth was a short-handled shovel with a red-painted handle, still sharp. Cate picked up the letter from the tin box. The name on the envelope left them both frozen. It wasn't addressed to them. It was addressed to Ruth Hemsworth, Lockyer Valley. Cate stared at those 3 words, as if they had altered the gravity of the ground beneath her feet. The letter had been written to their grandmother. And it had been buried on that land. On that land that no one wanted, that they had bought for $10. Kylie opened the letter carefully. She read it in silence, once, twice. When she looked up, Cate saw something on her sister's face she had never seen before. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't anger. It was something in between. That emotion that has no real name, because it only happens when you discover that the world was unfair to someone you loved even before you were born. "We need to find someone," Kylie said, carefully folding the letter. "A woman who knew Nana Ruth here, before we existed." Cate didn't ask how Kylie knew that. The name was in the letter. Dorothy Hayes. Dorothy Hayes was 79 years old and lived 14 kilometers away, in a small weatherboard house on an unsealed road that appeared only on old Shire maps. Cate had found the address at the Lockyer Valley Regional Council office after 2 hours sifting through physical records no one had touched in decades. Dorothy was listed as a witness on 3 property transfer documents dated 1987. Her name appeared next to that of a Ruth May Hemsworth. When the twins arrived, Dorothy was on the veranda in a cane chair. She saw them coming down the dirt road. She didn't get up. She didn't say anything. She just watched with the stillness of someone who had waited a long time for something and simply stopped counting the days. "Whose daughters are you?" she said before any introductions. "Granddaughters," Cate replied, "Ruth Hemsworth's." Dorothy closed her eyes. She opened them again. She gestured toward the other chairs. What she told them took 40 minutes, not a single word wasted. In 1987, Ruth Hemsworth had bought that lot with savings from 12 years of work as an enrolled nurse in Ipswich. She paid in cash. She had plans. She was going to build with her husband. Plant a garden. Raise her children there. She had started. She had even prepared the bunker herself, a practical woman, a builder's daughter, and stocked it with tools, documents, and everything she thought she might need for the second phase of construction. She had also buried the coins and the emergency money there. Queensland floods, she used to say. You always plan for Queensland floods. But then came the obstacles. Permits denied for vague reasons, documents that vanished before being signed, deadlines that expired because the paperwork never arrived. The lot was reclassified and reverted to the council. Ruth appealed. She appealed again. She lost again. And at a time when she had also lost her husband and had young daughters to support, she simply didn't have the strength left to keep fighting. She kept everything, Dorothy said. The documents, the evidence, the letter she wrote to herself for the day some Hemsworth came back. She said it was going to happen, she just didn't know when. "Did she know it would be us?" Kylie asked. "She knew it would be someone in the family," Dorothy replied. "That was all it needed to be." Following the maps marked dig sites, the twins spent 3 days carefully excavating the spots on the property. The first 2 yielded early colonial-era glass bottles, hand-forged nails, and a small collection of pre-Federation ceramics, modest finds, but historically significant for the region. The third site, marked with a double circle on the map, produced something more unexpected. A sealed tin containing a set of handmade gold jewelry, pieces that, once photographed and assessed, a Heritage Queensland contact confirmed appeared consistent with late 19th century Goldfields craftsmanship. Nothing museum-worthy on its own, but together with the coins and the banknotes, the bunker's contents had genuine value. Not a fortune, but enough. Enough to buy timber, hire a structural engineer for a day, get the electrical and plumbing consultations they needed, and pay a lawyer. The document Ruth had kept was a certified copy of the original purchase contract, with handwritten notes on the back, dates, names, irregularities she had documented during the appeals. It wasn't direct proof of fraud, but it was evidence of a pattern. A competent lawyer would know what to do with it. What Derek King wanted with that land was no longer a mystery. He had tried to buy it from the council in 2019, in 2021, and again in 2023. Kylie had found the records of canceled bids at the council offices while Cate was looking for Dorothy. In every case, the council had rejected the bids for reasons never fully explained. The lot remained stuck in legal limbo until that month's debt settlement auction, where it appeared listed for a nominal amount because no one knew what else to do with it. The turnaround came on a Monday morning, 4 weeks later. A council officer showed up at the property with a formal notice. Derek King had lodged a complaint claiming the auction sale was procedurally invalid, a notice period shorter than the statutory minimum. The argument was technical, but potentially sound. If the tribunal accepted it, the sale would be annulled. The lot would revert to the council. And Derek already had a solicitor ready to file a direct purchase application before proceedings concluded. Cate read the notice 3 times. Kylie read it once. "How long do we have?" Kylie asked the officer. "Hearing in 30 days. The officer left. The two stood still in the middle of the lot. Around them, the foundations of what they were building already dug out, the support posts driven in, part of the frame erected. 30 days. Cate looked at her sister. "What now?" Kylie tucked the notice into her back pocket. She picked up the hammer